The Floor Academy podcast is sponsored by Trelama, the trade labor marketplace, where businesses can find skilled trade labor, such as flooring installers, and where flooring installers and other skilled tradespeople can find permanent or project work. You can set up your profile at trelama.com, TRALAMA.com, or download the app from the Apple App Store or Google Play. And remember, Trelama is always free for skilled tradespeople. Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. We're here to talk with flooring professionals from all across the country about the issues that matter to you. I want to encourage you to learn while you earn. This week's guest is Andy McWilliams. Andy is currently the technical rep for Novalis Floors International, but was formerly an installer for many years. Managing a business is hard enough, but when you throw employees into the mix, it can really screw it up. Andy and I talk about how to hire and train apprentices for this trade. Listen in to find out why proper education is going to make a huge difference to your bottom line. Andy McWilliams, are you on the line?
Hey there. Yes, I am.
Awesome. Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Why don't you give us the, I don't know, what do we want to call it this time, the 30,000 foot view of you?
30,000 foot view of me. Well, started in the flooring industry young, working with my uncles and a buddy of mine, pretty much doing carpet and vinyl and anything that you walked on. You know, we moved on to laminate and got into some engineered wood as we kept learning. And later on, when LVT and LVPs came out, we started installing some of that. And most of them are still in it. My uncles and my buddy, they live in Colorado and they're still doing it as well. And I just continued my career in South Carolina. So I really enjoyed it. I love what I did. I wanted to learn a lot more about it. So I started taking some, continuing education classes and just kept excelling. And I'm here now. So still loving it.
And what do you do now? Because I know you have transitioned out of actually being an installer.
Yeah, so back in December of 19, I actually made the transition over into the technical field. I am now the North American Technical Specialist for Novalis Innovative Flooring.
So that means when I install the Novalis and I got to call that number, I get you, huh?
That's right.
That's disappointing. Correct. I'm going to have a talk with them. Well,
I mean, I've actually got you on Do Not Answer, so.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. No, it's very cool because, right, like the industry has so many things that you can pivot to if you have something go wrong in your installation career or you just kind of want to go and find something else. So it's inspiring to see that there's other options out there as you progress through your career, so you can still be involved with the industry, but you don't necessarily have to go beat yourself up on the floor.
Exactly. Yeah. And, that's one thing growing up in the industry that I've seen. I mean, everybody that I worked beside, I took something from them and I ran with it, whether it be an installation technique or a business model that they like to run or anything. I always, learned from it. And one of the big things that I learned from is the older guys that was in it, that was getting out of their truck at 7 o'clock in the morning and could barely walk because they'd worked all night and they was, 55, 60 years old. And, they just didn't have a desire to do anything but stay on their knees all day. And that's all they wanted to do. But I knew that there was something else that I could get into in the industry that would allow me to save my body, give me a better quality of life, and still be able to put something into this industry that I love.
Yeah.
And that, and my dream was to become a tech rep my entire life. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get into the technical field. And this chance came along and, hey, I was like, yes, absolutely. I'm going to take it. So that's what I did. But, yeah, I mean, there's so many different areas of this industry that you can get into and succeed without having to be on the floor every day.
For
Now, don't get
sure.
me wrong. I don't take it for granted because at any day I can be right back there doing floors, you know. So I try to stay sharp and try to install just a little bit, maybe at my house or in my tech room, just to keep my skills to where if something happens, because with
Hmm.
everything, tomorrow is not promised. So if I have to go back into it, I would be more than willing to. I mean, I love this. I love this industry. I mean, it's rewarding to say the least.
It is. It's awesome to be able to walk into something and it's either prepped for you or partially prepped, and then or it's some ugly stuff that's beat up, and when you walk away, you got a brand new home, brand new commercial space. It's changed, so you get that instant gratification of, look, I
Yep.
made progress, I did something, but what you did made a difference in how that space will be used. And
Sure.
my biggest thing lately has been, people, you go on an estimate and clients are like, oh, we already did the bathroom and we did the kitchen and we had everything painted, and like the floors are the last thing, and we just like the budget's getting low. And I'm like, hey, the floors are the last thing you should skimp on. I was like, look at everything in your house. What object do you use the most in here? It's like, it's the floor.
Sure.
Everything's
Yeah.
on it. You walk on it. You use it more than anything else in your house. It's like, if you're going to skimp anywhere, skimp on paint or something. Like, you don't touch the walls. You got to find more
Yeah.
money. Like, let's do this right. So it's, uh, people are crazy. It's amazing how much you use a floor once you actually realize what's going on with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Every day.
All right. So you've done some hiring as you went, and you actually ended up with two really great kids working for you right before you transitioned out, and they have since kind of they took over your company, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
So, what are your experiences hiring people and finding people? What kind of things have you seen in the industry as you were working that led to issues?
Well,
Well,
the experience with hiring people is, I most of the time you got a better chance at playing the lottery and getting somebody really good. I when I moved from Tennessee to South Carolina, I was a young, well, I was 19, so I jumped on a big commercial crew with a bunch of guys. I mean, and it ranged from guys that was greenhorns that didn't really know a whole lot, that was just toting, pad and toting VCT, to veterans that had been doing it for 20, 25 years that was on this crew. And we was traveling and doing these units. And the turnaround on guys that were coming in and out that I noticed, and this was a big eye opener to me because I come from a little town in Tennessee where I worked with my uncles and my buddy and that's all I knew,
mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing all these guys running in and out, and it just blew my mind. Like, you couldn't really keep anybody. And so there was just a few of us that stuck around through those times with this company. The rest of them, I mean, you'd see one guy, he'd show up on Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, he wouldn't be there. But on Friday, when you pick up your checks, he'd be rolling in to pick up his check. Hey, what happened to you?
Oh man.
Oh man, I had a flat tire. I had this, I had that, and those excuses just start. I mean, I could write a book of excuses from some of the excuses I've heard over the years.
Oh yeah.
Crazy, off the wall, things that just cause this person not to show up to work after, at the point of where you hired them. This person was like, oh yeah, man, I show up, I'm a really hard worker, I learn really fast. I'm sure you've heard it if you did any interviewing. I learn really fast, I'm there every day, this and that, and then Tuesday morning comes around, he's there and he's bumming money off of you for lunch, smoking cigarettes in your customer's garage, just not somebody you want to hire. But what they tell you up front is, that they're this golden ticket that you're going to have to a new apprentice,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or you get the guys that are installers already, that the interview goes like this. Yeah, I'm pretty much the best installer around. I've been doing it for 25 years, installed carpet my whole life, this and that. And in the back of your head, you're thinking, well, why aren't you interviewing me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what you're that good. Why are you coming to work for me? Why are you jobless right now? Why don't you have your own tools in your own van? And then later on down the road, you find out why. It's because, yeah, he is an awesome installer, but his personal life gets in the way of his career. So here again, he doesn't show up to work on Monday, or, you pay him on Friday, he's broke on Saturday. So these guys that we hire in this industry, it's when we get somebody good, you really got to hang on to them, and I lucked out, like you said a minute ago, I lucked out with these two, Casey and Carson. They're brothers. Casey was 19 when he came on with me, and Carson was still in school, and he worked for me over a summer, and then ended up graduating and then coming to work for me a couple months later after he graduated. And these two kids, they was the most wholesome kids I ever met in my life, man. They was honest, hardworking. And in their generation, they was one of a kind. I mean, you don't
Mm-hmm.
find kids in their generation. And they was willing to learn. And I told Casey when he started at 19, I said, look, I'll make you a deal. And I told everybody this when I hired them, especially young kids. I told them, look, if you work with me between 3 and 5 years, I'll have you to where you can buy your own van, and you'll be an installer, and you'll be making your own money and running your own crew.
Yeah.
And most of the time, 6 months in, these guys were already at that point, most of the young guys, and they'd leave me, or leave me high and dry and go work for another store in town or something. And, Charleston's a smaller area, so you kind of hear about things throughout, So yeah, this guy, so-and-so came and told me he worked for you for a year, and we gave him a job, and, he messed the whole thing up. So,
that's tough.
Those guys, they're a dime a dozen. And I'm sure anybody that's listening to this has had one of those guys come to work for them. But these two guys, Casey and Carson, so wholesome kids, they started with me, and man, I fully believe that when you hire somebody, especially somebody new to the industry, you have to start them at ground zero. And what I mean by that is you have to start them off as a fresh helper. As much as you want to produce and get more work done and make more money,
Mm-hmm.
and teach them as fast as possible, you're only hurting yourself. You're hurting them, and you're hurting yourself. And actually, you're hurting future clients down the road that's going to have to deal with some of the mishaps that they didn't learn.
Yeah. No,
So,
I agree.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, right? Like you want to start them off at the beginning, and you want to instill those foundational values, because if they don't learn how to sweep a room properly, then what are they leaving behind? I hate it. Like I can go into a new build, which is very rare for me, but I've gone in, I can take up the carpet and the padding the day they close, and there's dirt and debris underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you, sir? You can't even take the time to sweep the room a little bit before you put
Right.
down the carpet. Like, really, that's how fast we have to turn these things over.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of getting those little things down, and then if you can pay attention to those little details in the prep work, dude, installing's easy. I can teach a monkey to install. It's not hard.
Yep.
It's getting all the steps right up to that point to make sure it's successful is what matters.
Sure. And, basic installation is easy. You're right. Now, once you get up into the higher levels and, things like that, you really need to be experienced to do some of the things that, that is out there. You couldn't go on one of Scott Zito's jobs as a 2-year apprentice and just because you know how to install a room of carpet, jump on his job and go at it, because it's a different level of installation. But basic installation, you're absolutely correct. You can teach somebody that really fast, but basic apprentice skills is what matters, because you have to know how to get to the point of installation.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how to get to that point correctly, then you're going to cause yourself some time and possibly a failure, because that's where it's at. That's where it always is. That's where the failures always occur, is in the prep work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with the exception of carpet most of the time, where you didn't stretch it properly or something, or you didn't seal the seams, but most of the time, and still with carpet, you still get issues with prep work. How you tack strip a room, how you install the pad, things like that are still huge in the success of your installation. And these guys need to be taught that immediately. Casey didn't hold a knife for a month. Carson didn't hold a knife for almost 3 months. It's not what I hired him for.
Mm-hmm.
Casey started I hiring him for a guy that was the muscle. He went and got stuff. I did a lot of yachts when he was first, when he got hired on. So you can imagine the boat is 200 yards on a dock, and my van's, in a parking lot.
No, thank you.
And man, forgot my pencil. Casey, he gets back. Casey, I forgot the pencil sharpener.
Oh man,
What was
yeah.
funny is Casey was a skateboarder, so he learned real fast to bring a skateboard to work. So, but again, I started those two guys from the bottom, and I didn't want him to learn how to install for a long time. And really, when Casey started learning other than LVT, glue down LVT and floating LVPs,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I brought him into that about 6 to 8 months in. He was picking up pretty fast, and I was bringing him into the installation part of that. But I also was grinding in his head that, hey, just because you're installing this doesn't make you an installer. Remember that. You have a lot to learn. And I would say that to him every time he'd get down to start installing. And I would make sure before he came over to me and said, hey, I can start installing, all his duties were done up to that point. Because there ain't nothing like your guy that's helping you coming over and helping you finish a room, and the job's done and you're getting ready to go, and you walk outside and there's a pile of trash laying on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why didn't you load this in the van? Oh, well, I wanted to help you finish that. That's not your job.
Yeah.
And what that does is that teaches them not only how to be a helper, but how to run their own crew, and delegate who needs to do what during the time that they're on that job. Because all of that comes into play when you're going into a job site. If you go into a job with 3 guys and you're the lead man, and the other 2 guys, they're not very experienced, not only do you have to know what you're doing, but you got to guide these other two guys as well.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, I mean, then you're going to be on top of each other, be doing the same thing while something else is not getting done. And it's just not going to end out well. I mean, so bringing guys into this industry, it's my belief that you have to start them at ground zero. Back to that. I mean, without a doubt, because what you get is, and we hear it all the time on FIA and other sites, and this guy thought he was an installer and he left. I wasn't paying him enough. He said I wasn't paying him enough, so he left, and now he's installing on his own.
Yeah.
Well,
and
he was the cause.
Correct. And how well of a job is he doing? I completely agree with you. I think that when you bring on somebody, first, I'm huge on, let's call them apprentices. They're not helpers. Okay. Unless they prove otherwise. I understand that you can hire somebody to be the helper. Okay. And that they're going to be there to open the boxes, move the boxes, carry stuff to and from, get tools, run cuts. Okay. Yes, that is a helper. But let's hire everybody with the intention of making them an apprentice so that they will become an installer, and then they can become a master craftsman. Let's use proper terms to give people something to work towards. And if that person comes in and they've been there 6 months and they're not showing anything and they're just always going to be what you would consider a helper, cool. Let them remain there if that's what's going to work for you. But at least be nice and say, that's my apprentice. Okay. And then you can bring in another guy or girl and try and get them above. But yeah, getting him to do the little things, right? Like I would have my guy prep ahead of me, and he didn't get to install until the all the prep work was done, and there was no more prep work, and there was only installation left. And then
Right.
that wasn't really working out, so I switched and I started teaching him how to install base. So then baseboard could start going up behind me. So it's just a matter, like you got to figure out, right? Like you're delegating responsibilities to figure out how that crew can work. And then it also takes time to develop that relationship. I could go, and the guy that I was working with, man, we haven't worked together in probably over a year, but I know I could go on that job site and hop in, look at what's going on, see where he's at, figure out the scope of the project, and within 20 minutes, we'd be on the same page. And if he's going on one thing, I'm going to be going on another to get that part done. And we don't even have to communicate about the project. And I think it it's usually going to take you probably 6 months to a year to get somebody there, depending on what their skill level is, knowledge, how much they actually care. But that's an important thing. If people aren't picking up on the routine of every time we walk in a house, we start at A and then we get to Z, and they can't remember what B through Y are, you got a problem, and you might want to look for somebody new.
Yep. And here's the other thing. Some of that also depends on the leadership too. You know, if you can't walk into a house and tell those guys the correct thing to do, that could fall back on, you know, you as the lead guy, you know, not you, of course, but the installer as the lead guy. That could definitely fall back on you because you haven't trained him to do so.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I really believe it's a team effort when you get on the job at all times, but you have to have like that guy that is the lead man or the boss on the job or whatever you may call him. He has to come from a background to where he was taught the right way and was brought up from the beginning as well, because, you know, if not, then there's going to be some issues there. But yeah, you have to really give new guys, you know, the goal of this can be a career for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is not, you know, you're not flipping burgers. No offense to anybody that flips burgers, but you know, you're not flipping burgers for minimum wage. I mean, this job can really, you know, pay your bills for the rest of your life and give you a good quality of life. And, you know, you just have to stick to it, just like anything else. And I think that's one of the hardest things with the generation that we're bringing in now is they are so, I don't know what's causing it, but they want the immediate satisfaction. They don't want the, oh, well, I have to start here. They want to start at the top where you're at. They see where you're at, and they see, you know, they might think because you're the boss and you own the company that you're making all this money, and they want that. And they don't understand that it just doesn't come to them like that. And it never will.
No, it won't. I think that's one of the biggest things is that there's a lack of business education amongst trades professionals. Hence, you know, Floor Academy exists. But along with teaching them how to do the floor, you need to teach them how to run the business. And I don't want to hear that, well, then they're just going to go and start their own business. Good.
Right.
If you teach them right, what do you care if they go out and run a good business alongside you? You're only bettering the area, you know, your community will be better because there will be be two good installers, right? You're not having this guy go out and he's hacking it up everywhere. He's running a successful, profitable business and he's doing it right. Okay. That'll help you. Plus it's somebody you can call and say, hey man, I'm running behind on this project. You got a day available. You can come and help me. You can sub work to them. Like you end up with more options. If they stick with you, awesome. Like, dude, we need worker bees, but some people are queen bees. So they're going to be a worker bee until they become the queen bee. But exactly. you got to give them that knowledge, and you don't be afraid to lose them.
No,
it's just, but you
want to go,
you know, it's like you said, right? They see you put down that invoice and you're getting that $10,000 check. And they're like, wow, no wonder he has the brand new truck and the trailer and all the tools and his bills are paid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's when you sit him down and you say, okay, you want to go through this $10,000? We can go through it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I got to pay my mortgage. I got to pay my insurance. I got to pay the insurance for the company. I got to pay the licensing for the company. I've got my kids to feed. I've got their special activities to pay for. I've got to pay you. And then you see that taxes that came out over there. You see that federal tax and that FICA. Yeah, I matched that. So like you don't even see that, but it happens. I got the workman's comp on you.
Yeah.
You start explaining this stuff to them and they're like, oh, yeah. So it's not 10,000. It's maybe I get half of that if I'm lucky, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So if I pay you 40,000 a year, it's costing me at least 60,000 a year to employ you,
Probably.
without a doubt. You know. Um,
And that doesn't
yeah.
include all the food I buy you, right? Like, oh man, hey, I need you to be at my house at 6 today instead of like meeting me at the job site because it's far, but I'll buy you breakfast. Or,
Yep.
Hey, I know this drive was really far. Here's an extra $20 out of my pocket to pay for some
Exactly.
gas. Like, it doesn't include all the little stuff you're going to give them along the way. Lunches,
Right.
breakfast, late nights, getting them dinner if you're working long.
Yeah.
Like,
The days that you don't work a full day, but you still pay them for a full day.
correct.
Things like that. And and Casey, the oldest of the two of my guys, about 3 years in, we didn't have many. There was a few times that we butted heads, just small little things. Maybe it was me sometimes, because I'm not the easiest to get along with on the job. I'm pretty much, if it's not my way, it's the highway. And
Yeah.
you know, but a couple of those happened, and then one time there was an issue. It wasn't really with what I paid him; it was more so what I was paying him, not for that week, but weekly in general. And I mean, the kid was, at this time, he was probably 21, going on 22, and he's at 22 years old. He was making more money than anybody he knew. And not only was he my employee, but I mean, I treated him like he was, my little brother, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked, on a daily basis in the van, about his personal life. We skateboarded together a little bit, here and there. Well, I rode on flat ground while he did flips and tricks mainly, but, so we talked, and I knew him personally. So I knew that he was making by far more than anybody that he knew in his friends group, and his group of friends that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, I don't want to say that he got a little greedy, but he was just, he felt like he wasn't making enough money. And he was saying, I can't pay my bills with all this money. And I basically just broke it down to him. I was like, look, Casey, and like I just said, I was like, you are making more money than anybody you know. The problem that you have is you're not budgeting it right.
Yeah.
Sit down and budget your money correctly. And, don't buy a skateboard this week like you do every other week. Don't really spend your money on what you need, and then come back to me in a couple weeks when you really budgeted your money and tell me if it's that I'm not paying you enough, or is it that you wasn't budgeting your money. And sure enough, I mean, he thought about what I said. That was a very short summary of what really happened. It was probably about an hour and a half long conversation with him, and it started off pretty heated. He was pretty mad. And at the end of it, he was calmed down, and he came back to me. He was like, you was right. I looked around, and I didn't look around for another job, but I looked around at what things pay and what other jobs pay. And there's no way I could make the money I'm making here. So I do need to maybe straighten up my spending habits and things like that. And you don't get that either with people. Most of the time it's, you're not paying me enough money, I'm leaving, because this guy will pay me 50 cents more an hour up the road.
Man, and the grass isn't always greener, man. The 50
Oh, I
cents
know.
to be disrespected, is it worth it?
Yeah.
It's crazy what people do. And I'm with you, but that's, he was living outside of his means. And that's
Right.
exactly why I'm saying, like, man, especially when you're hiring them young and you're looking for that green guy that's 18, 19, 20 years old, like, doesn't have any direction in life. You can't just teach them the trade. You have got to teach them life. You have to
Yep.
give them a financial background and help give them, raise them up so they can be successful. And if you don't have it, it's not too late for you to go get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Look, we do the book of the month. Some of the books are financial, some of them are business, some of them are leadership based. Like, I'm trying to make us all well-rounded, better tradespeople and business owners. And we're business owners first. Like, the minute you stepped out and you opened your own company, you stopped being an installer. That
Yep.
is one of your job titles. But you are business owner first now, salesperson second, and one of the last things you do is an installer. And if you take somebody else's livelihood into your hands, you better make sure that you are trying to do right by them and get them set up for success. Because if their life becomes easier, then who are they? It'll build loyalty. If their life is
Yes.
easy and you're taking care of them, it goes a long way. And I know it seems like it doesn't these days, but it really does.
No, it really does. It really does. I mean, loyalty is huge, and there's not a whole lot of it, you know, out there. So when you get it, when you get loyalty from another guy that's working for you, man, you got to hold on to him as much as you can and treat him, as good as you can. But what you was saying about, changing from the installer to a business owner, that's one of the biggest problems, because that's almost impossible to happen across the board in this industry. Um, you know, I know you're a business owner yourself. You don't own a brick and mortar store, but there is in your town, and I'm sure, there's many of them. There's a lot of flooring stores there, right?
Oh yeah.
How many subcontractors would you say works out of each of them? Say, let's just say the largest store you got there, that's a retail, residential, light commercial store.
Oh man, dude, I don't even know, because I've never subbed, so I don't even know any of the local installers other than the one I worked with. Really, it's
Yeah.
really bad. Like, I'm working on getting more involved in my community, but I would say, you know, a good sized store is probably keeping what, 10 guys busy, like
Yeah.
10 to
And,
20
I don't
guys.
really, and this may be, I may be off base, but it's my opinion that where the stores are messing up at is they are subcontracting this work to these guys, because now you're requiring a guy that probably has never had any kind of business, experience in his life. He come up installing in the construction industry, in the flooring industry, and now he has to run a business, so he has to make a schedule for himself, manage his money, pay a couple guys and install for you, when you could simply hire him as an installer, as an in-house installer, give him a better quality of life with maybe some insurance and 401k, and make this guy schedule for him, and just put the responsibility of installing on him, because that's where these stores are really hurting. They're lacking guys because there's no loyalty, because they're subs. So they're not required to show up on Monday morning at 7 o'clock. They, if they get another job and it pays better, they're going to call, hey, I can't do this job today, and they won't show up. And that happens all over the United States. I mean, one of the stores that I subbed from for a long time in Charleston, they had that problem every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody wasn't showing up to do their job because they took another job from another retail store, and I think I don't know why, I can't figure out why they won't do it, but they need to hire these guys in house. Not everybody's meant to own their own business, Kyle.
Correct. I 100%
Not
agree.
everybody, you're a very, I mean, even me, I probably should have been more on the in-house installer side of things than running my own business. Now I did it and I pushed forward and I tried my best, and I wasn't the greatest, but what I did make sure is that I ran my schedule correct. And if I told you I was going to do something, I did it.
Yeah.
If I told you I was going to be there, I was going to be there. If I told you I was going to finish by this day, it was going to get finished. Now I might have to work a couple of all-nighters to do it, but if I said it was going to get done, it got done. Other guys, that just wasn't the case, and it's simply because they're overwhelming themselves, because they don't know how to make a schedule. They don't know how to balance a week out. All they know how to do is install, and they can't say no to the money.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't I don't fully agree in that everyone should become an in-house installer and be paid hourly. There's pros and cons to every side, right? Like our buddy Jason Goldberg over at America's Floor Source, right? Like, dude, that's subcontractors, and I don't even know how many he has. Dave Garden has like 200 crews working for him for like his Lowe's outfits. So there's you can do the subcontracting thing. You can try and help them out. You can have in-house guys. Like that's the method that I'm personally trying to build is that I want to get the brick and mortar and I want to have in-house installers, but I want to be able to control how everything gets installed. It's I like you, it's my way or the highway, and my way hasn't failed me yet. So I'm just going to go with my way. But
Sure.
it's you're right in that a lot of guys shouldn't be running their own crew, right? Because they don't understand what it takes to actually run it. They don't know how to go and try and get more money out of the store. They're just accepting low rates from the stores. There's all kinds of things going on, but there are guys that do know how to do it. And if they would come work for us or they would go work for a store as an hourly employee and get their taxes taken out, yeah, I 100% agree that they could live a much better life. But it's financial education is just so lacking in general. Hence the fact that everyone thinks they need to live in debt in America. And that's like the American dream is to like, how much debt can I accumulate? But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
So
Oh, no, that's, I mean,
it's, we have to do better on getting people brought up. And while I'm trying to work on fixing anyone that wants to listen to the show is going to get that stuff squared away if they put the effort in. But what I'm really worried about is I want everybody to take the time of, okay, we have this installer crisis. We have this there's no young kids that want to do it. Well, good. When you find one, make sure he's taught correctly so we don't go through this again. Please.
exactly. And show him that there's more to it than just install, and you have a chance to install for 10, 15 years and move into the sales field or move into the technical field. I would give it more like 20 to 25 for technical, but it's not just about getting into the installation industry, but that's where you start. I mean, that's really a good salesman is an ex-installer. It's rare that you find a salesman, especially at a retail store, that is really good and never measures short and always has their moldings correct and always knows what underlayment to use and things like that has never installed before. Most of the time your salesmen that succeed are ex-installers because they've been in the field. They know what it's like. They know what they have to pay those installers to get them to do this job, and do the prep to this job. So when you bring somebody in, you have to show them the entire industry immediately and say, look, this is what this industry is all about. And you can go any different way in this industry. It is all about sticking to it, but you got to start here and you got to learn it right here because this is ground zero. First and foremost.
Yeah, so here's your utility knife and there's some carpet. Go cut it up. So talking about having guys start at the bottom, okay?
Boy, am I glad you said that because I definitely wanted to bring up another topic.
I had a guy come out and try for the position on let's see. I don't know, I think it was last week Thursday. And he made it 4 hours. I had him rip out some carpet and some tack strip, remove the baseboards, clean the caulking off of it, send them to another room. Well, okay, then we ground the subfloor clean of like all the texture and paint and all that stuff. Send him into the master bedroom, told him to start ripping that carpet out. He comes to me and it's like 10 to 11 and we started at 7. And he's like, hey man, I got to go home and get my inhaler. My allergies are acting up. And I was like, okay. You gonna be okay? He was like, yeah, I just gotta go home. And I was like, all right, you want to come back or like, what do you want to do? And he was like, no, I gotta see how I'm doing. I was like, all right, well, I forgot to grab money, so send me your info and like I'll hook up with you when I get done here for the day. So went and hooked up with him afterwards, and I get him his money, and hand it to him, and he's like, yeah, so I don't think that I want to continue on. I don't think it's a good job fit for me. And I was like, cool, man. Sounds good. Now,
Yeah.
granted, like that wasn't going to be the case anyways, but,
Yeah.
um, it's, dude, 4 hours, like pulling carpet
Yeah.
was hard work for this guy. And
Yep.
it's, dude, we're cutting carpet, we're rolling it up, and we're putting it in the bed of my truck.
It is mind boggling at how hard that really is when you've never done it before. And not to me or you, but to somebody that really has never did that before, they come on and it's, I mean, they're dying by the second hour. I had two different stories. So one guy, this guy, he's about 6'6", 275, semi-pro quarterback. This cat was a big dude. He worked at a local restaurant bar around the corner from me, so I knew him pretty well. We played rec basketball together. He was like, if you can picture like LeBron James with no breaks. So he'd like get down court, and I mean, just he'd be all over the rim. He was a big, muscular dude. And he was like, hey man, one night I was there having a few drinks, and he was like, I'd love to come to work for you, in the daytime and make some extra money a couple days a week. And I was like, sure, man, why not? And dude, one day we was out on an island doing a big, 4-story house, and it's probably about 250 yards of carpet in this house, and it was just take up and put back. It was rental furniture, so it was real easy. All the wicker stuff, just slid it out of the way into the big bathrooms and started tearing the carpet. And Casey was actually working for me at the time. He was still a young helper at that point, or a young apprentice, excuse me, Kyle.
But you fixed it. You fixed it. That's what matters.
I fixed it. Sonny will be proud of me. So he, halfway through the tear out, excuse me, I come downstairs and he's like propped up against the van, like sweating, like, he out of breath. I'm like, dude, you okay? He was like, yeah, man, I'm all right. I was like, you gonna make it? He was like, I'll see. So we get through the day, and he pushed through the day. He fell asleep in the van on the way home. And, the next morning I get a text. He was supposed to work on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And, the next morning I get a text, and he's like, dude, ain't no way, man. I respect what you do, and just cut out for it. And I'm thinking, dude, this cat could like pick me up, ball me up, and throw me across the yard.
Different set of muscles.
Yeah, he couldn't last on a carpet job. And another kid I picked up in my local town, he was on Facebook on one of the pages. He came to work and worked that day, and on the way home he was at the red light. I was about to turn right to go to his house. I was like, all right, 3:00 tomorrow, or 8:00 in the morning. He was like, I'm actually not going to come back. I was like, and it was the easy day. We had two. It was like, I don't even know how I got these two jobs together, but it was identical. It was a room over the garage and a set of steps of carpet across town from each other. So I dropped Casey off on the first one to get it prepped, and ran over to the other one and did it with him. All he had to do was carry the pad in and out and carry the old carpet out. And then we went back to Casey's job, and he had it ready for me. So we installed it. We was off by, 2:30, 3:00, and kid couldn't handle it. He was done. He was young. He was like 19. So it's not for everybody. That's the thing.
No, it's not.
I've always considered flooring as somewhat of a sport.
Okay.
Every day you're moving, your whole body is active every day. And, people that don't like that lifestyle won't do very well here. If you're not ready to get down and grind, you're not going to succeed.
Yeah, there's definitely a huge, like, I hate seeing it in every like job posting, like hard work, it's gonna beat you up. Like I hate seeing that stuff, because I'd rather see us point out like the fun parts of the career path and how it's rewarding. Yeah. And like people walk in and like you make a difference in homeowners' lives and things. Like, sell the job on the good stuff, not the hard stuff. But I mean, you do need to mention that like it can wear you down, it can tire you out. But I tell everybody, you're gonna hate your life for the first 3 months. You're gonna go home, you're gonna take a nap for a couple hours, you're gonna wake up, you're gonna eat dinner, and you're gonna go back to sleep, you're gonna wake up, and you're gonna come to work again. And if you do that, after a couple weeks, you won't be sore anymore. And finally, your body will adjust. And then we'll hit
Hmm.
summer. And because Phoenix is so hot, then you go through an adjustment period when it heats up. And like you get tired again because now you're just working in the sun all the time for 8-10 hours a day. But
Yeah,
then you get used to it a couple weeks in and you're good to go. But it just, yeah, you got to build up an endurance for it. That's for
you
sure.
do. And that goes right back to that immediate satisfaction. Some of these younger guys, they're just not, they don't want to work through that. That's too much for them. They want to already be at the level that they need to be at. And it just doesn't work out. And they're hard to find. That's for sure. So when we find them, we need to keep them. That needs to be a slogan. If you find them, keep them.
Oh, if you find them, reward them, man. I don't
Yeah.
like, and it doesn't even have to be monetarily, dude. A good job goes a long way. We're not Gen X anymore, and I mean we are, but you ain't got to ride the guy all day long. You don't have to be a jerk and send him to the van looking for the board stretcher or whatever stupid tool you want him to find. Like, look, I'm down for a little bit of light hazing. I like
Yeah.
razzing on guys. Like that's part of being in construction, right? But like
Yeah.
you don't have to be an a-hole about it, okay? That's another
Right.
reason these kids quit. They're
Yep.
not, one, they're not built for it, but two, man, they're a human being just like you. Did you really like getting dogged on like that and like cussed up and down and made fun of? Did that really make you excited to go and work
It
with
didn't.
the boss?
And that's exactly how I was brought up. I mean, from the time, I started in this industry, got into when I told you I moved to South Carolina, got on that big commercial crew. Those guys over there were relentless.
I
I'm
bet.
talking pranks and just you being the low man on the totem pole, you was getting it. And if you didn't have tough skin, you wasn't going to last.
Mm-hmm.
And, I found myself bringing that over into my world. And I figured out that wasn't always the best route, and you had to really pick and choose who you could do that with. And there was some guys that came along that was okay. You could, hey, who installed that closet? It looks like Ray Charles installed that. Or they're joking with him, but you couldn't do that to another guy. That was completely, you hurt his feelings. He might not come back.
Correct. I mean, look, not everybody's cut out for the prank of, yeah, man, the trowel's at the bottom of the glue bucket. So,
Yeah. Or seam sealer in your hat. Or,
I've
So,
I've
but
seen
yeah, I mean,
crazy stories of like, you get the new guy to keep the rag of mineral spirits in his back pocket all day. So then he gets a chemical burn. Like, dude, that's
yeah,
not even funny. That's just
not even fun.
it's
Terrible.
abuse.
Yeah. Well, and that on the other side of things too, that's, I'd rather see somebody that likes to have fun on the job and do that than just be like the ultimate prick to work for. And you see it as much as I do online. Well, if that was my guy, he'd be fired. He'd never work for me. He wouldn't do this. I mean, you can't work for somebody and you're walking on eggshells all day.
Correct.
You're afraid to cough in a customer's house. You're afraid to, you have to let these guys be themselves a little bit. Now, of course, show them, hey, that you have to act in a professional manner, but still, I mean, if the guy comes to work with a hole in his jeans or something, he's not fired. Just say, hey man, let's not try to wear those jeans again next week. Or,
Correct.
hey, your pants was a little low today. You need to tighten up your belt or something. Not completely just make them feel like, they're nothing and they don't deserve to work for you because they've made a small mistake in their learning process. That's the thing, they're learning. It's not like they know this already. And most of these guys act like that the people they hire should just be the perfect employee. Well, aren't you teaching them how to install and how to be an installer?
Yeah.
This is part of it. So instead of just completely throwing them out the window for a small mistake, make them learn from it now. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they need to hear about it. But number one, you need them tomorrow, because you're going to be back online complaining about you can't find any help tomorrow.
Correct. As much as it's sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say, as much as it's a like lack of, we can't find young people, it's a lack of leadership.
Yeah.
We're, like I said, you know, a lot of guys and gals are great craftsmen. They're artisans. They can do that part amazing, but we lack. I will flat out admit I suck at training. I am an a-hole. I have no patience. I just want you to understand it right away. Like I can't do it. And that's where I'm struggling right now is like, I need to get somebody in and get them trained, but I have to, I'm learning as much as they are because I'm learning how to train properly and not be a jerk about
Right.
it. And so, you know, that's, you need to go work on you as much as you need them to work on them. Like you have
Yeah.
to go learn how to be a better leader. How can you communicate more effectively? You need to make sure that you're communicating the same thing the same way every time. You can't tell them one way on Monday, and then on Wednesday when they haven't done it in 2 days and you explain it on Wednesday and it's different. You're making it more difficult because now you're changing it up every time.
Right. Well, and it's difficult to do it the same way. I will say on some things, it's difficult to do it the same way, exact same way every time. Cause like we was talking about before, I think before we even got on, you know, every job's different. So
Correct.
you're going to have to tackle, you know, obstacles different, you know, on each job. So you might not get to cut around the toilet like you did on the next job because it might fall different, so you might have to use a different technique to measure it, you know, or a door jam or something. It just, every job's different, but in the same sense, showing the technique, you can't get mad at him because he, you know, you showed him on Monday and like you said on Wednesday he completely has no idea. I mean, because this is a whole new world to them, you know. They're not only are they trying to learn, but they're not trying to lose their job, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got somebody that has you walking on eggshells the whole time, it's going to make it even harder for you to learn that job because you're trying your best not to mess up and you're nervous as all get out. You're sweating, you know, you're working hard, you're sweating, you're nervous, and you're trying to learn at the same time. And geez Louise, I mean, can it get any harder?
Correct. And then it's, you know, man, I always communicate clearly like, look, you get 2 attempts on any cut you're going to make. Like if they actually get to the point where they get to install and they're learning how to install, they get 2 attempts and they're cut off after that. I only have so much cut allowance. So I can't have you over there like going through board after board, trying to cut a door jam in because you keep measuring it wrong. If you go through a whole box, like if you use the whole box, like I'm pretty screwed. So,
Yeah.
you know, like there's, but you got to let them know up front. Like, it's not that I don't trust that you can do it, but I need to make sure this one gets done right. You can try again on the next one. And I'll like come and get me and I'll go back over how to measure it out so that you can do it right.
Well, and even as long as I've been doing it, if I mess up a cut twice, I'm getting up and going and walking away and doing something else for a little while. I'll come back to that because after twice you're frustrated, you know.
Yeah. It's
And
really
usually that
disappointing.
second mess up at the end of the job. You know, it's not at the first of the day, you know. It's at the end of the job where you're trying to get it done, you're in a rush or something, and you mess up. So, and you look over at the box and there's 3 pieces of material left and you got a whole wall left and you're like, okay, so do or die right here.
Yep.
Is Mrs. Susie Homemaker going to like me or hate me?
Uh-huh. So I'm a box short. You need
Yeah.
to go get another box. Where'd it come from?
So the salesman measured this job short, and
Oh,
so oh man, yep, that's the fun stuff though. You know, I really enjoy like teaching new people though, and bringing them in. It's always been something that I like doing, and you know where I found that I was the best at training at was in residential homes. You know why? Because I couldn't yell at them like I would, and like I would have got yelled at
yeah.
on a site or a multifamily construction site, you know, where it's just construction workers out there. So in a customer's home, when they're downstairs, you know, with their 2 and 3 year old, you know, in the kitchen, and you're putting on a set of steps and doing their upstairs, and somebody messes up, you can't, you know, and now some guys still do, don't get me wrong. There's some guys out there that just don't care, but that's where I had to, I like to carry myself as more professional than the average installer. And I wouldn't do that. I would, hey, come here, come outside with me for a second. Hey, what are you doing in there, man? Like, you've been in that closet for 25 minutes. Like, move on. Can I help you with something? Instead of getting on his back, and because not only are you yelling at him and you're making yourself look bad as the company owner or the lead man, but now you're embarrassing him in front of somebody else.
Yeah.
And nobody likes to be embarrassed. Nobody likes to be belittled in front of somebody, because that just makes, it makes you look bad. It makes everybody look bad that's in that.
Exactly.
Makes whoever you're doing the job for look bad. So, it goes both ways in this industry. Not only do we need to bring more guys in, but the guys that are running these crews that are bringing the guys in really need to take a step back and look and see how they're really doing things.
Yeah. And on the exact opposite side of that, give credit where credit's due. If the homeowner comes to you and they're talking about how they love something, and that your guy did that,
absolutely,
and he's learning, man, don't take the credit for it. Say that was all him. He did that. Build him up. Let him get that reward. Make sure he knows that, like, they really like the trim work he did, or they noticed that closet was installed just amazing. And even if it's just a stupid square room and, like, there's no way to kind of screw it up, if they did it on their own, let them get the credit and feel like, that they just need to feel good about themselves, right? Are you going to want to come to work after, your boss steals the credit, or are you going to want to come back the next day after he made sure to point out that you were the one that did it and then you got the credit you deserved?
Exactly. So, and it took me forever with one of the retail companies that I was working for, with Casey and his brother, to get the salespeople there to trust them, because of that same reason. They'd been through so many different installers over the years, and their helpers, and, mistakes that they made. And finally, I sat down with the owner and the general manager, and I was like, look, I pointed out a couple of different jobs, and some of the smaller jobs towards the end that I was letting Casey and Carson just completely. There was a couple little jobs where I literally pulled my fold out chair out of the back of the van and sat down and was like, this is your job. Let's start to finish.
Yeah.
Tear it out, pre-tack strip it, put it back, or tear it out, prep it, and lay it, and I told them that, because I didn't want to tell them that up front, because they would freak out, oh man, you're letting these and that's what they call them. You're letting these helpers do this job. We're hiring you to do the job. Yes, but I'm training the future. So what's going to happen when I stop?
Yep.
Who are you going to have?
You hired my company, not me. I can dictate however I want my company to handle this job. That's why I'm a subcontractor and not an employee.
Yep. And so finally, when I had that meeting, I was like, look, I pointed out some of these key jobs. I was like, this job right here that you got a good review on, that the customer was ecstatic. Casey did that job with his brother. I sat outside. This job right here, Casey did that job. I was like, come on the job with us. Look, watch what they do. And finally, it started clicking, and it started, they started understanding that, hey, these guys were here for a career, and they were doing it. So they started trusting him more. And then it got to the point they were calling me, hey, does Casey and Carson have work with you this weekend? Can we use them on this or use them on that? And I was like, hey, whoa.
You can't steal my guys. They're my guys.
Yeah, they're my guys.
You can give me the job, and then I'll send them out.
Exactly. What's the check still going to be in my name? But, it's all about making everybody that you work for comfortable with who you bring on too. You got to make sure that the guys that you bring on look presentable, very respectable, and you can trust them in someone's house or in someone's place of business.
Yes.
And not that they're going to steal something. I've had all kinds of crazy stuff happen over the years. I've had guys, their girlfriends show up to the job site and them argue in the parking lot, just like crazy stuff that is just, it shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And you got to make sure that you set the tone early that doesn't happen. But also, again, not have them walking on eggshells, So there's a fine line, and a lot of guys,
and even I struggled with it over the years. I mean, I struggled hard with it. It was hard for me to really have that, median to where I wasn't this guy that was just completely impossible to work for. Because I was no nonsense. I mean, I don't deal with drugs. I cannot stand a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
Can't stand a thief, and I want you to come to work. I don't want you to come to work in jogging pants and a painted up t-shirt that, you've had for 20 years. I always told my guys, like, look, come to work like you're going to play golf.
Okay.
I want you to look presentable.
Yeah.
That's we're going into these homes. These people are, $1 million homes that we're going into. They don't want guys coming in with raggedy clothes, and it's immediately going to set an impression on them. Whether you think it or not, they're going to think differently of you.
Yes.
So, and for the most part, it worked, and still you had your guys here and there that didn't, but that's what you get. You get that. So,
well, and I mean, my biggest thing would be write it down. Okay. If you're going to take the time to tell one employee that you hire all this information, spend the time to type it up and write it out, and then save that file, and you can go back and you can change it, because you're probably going to end up hiring somebody else. And this way they get it. They can sign it. They agree to it. They have a copy. You have a copy. You can hold everybody accountable to the same standards. It's not that you told one person one thing and another person another thing.
Exactly.
Okay? You want to know why a lot of small businesses have issues? Nothing's documented. You want to know why Fortune 500 companies are successful? Go get hired on at one and see how much paperwork you got to fill out, man. They're going to send you home with a 50-page employee handbook. It'll tell you how your hair can be cut. Like you want to run a good business? Run a business. Stop running, the lemonade stand when you're 8 years old. You're not doing that anymore.
Yeah. But again, it takes somebody that can successfully run a business and not just be an installer. You have to know what you're doing, or you will fail.
I mean, there's a learning curve. You have to want to change and make it a business. Correct. I agree.
Yeah. If not, you're going to be stuck in the same place with the same help, making the same money, driving the same beat up van that you was driving 20 years ago. No offense to anybody that's driving a 20-year-old van, because a lot of people still have them, probably take good care of them, but the guys I'm talking about. Guys that you just don't want on your jobs. They refuse to further their education. They refuse to do anything, but this is how I was taught. I've been doing flooring for this long, and I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
No matter if the locking mechanism changed on the LVP that they're installing, and they don't realize it, and they're messing it up as they're installing it, you still can't tell them that they're doing it wrong. Pick up a set of instructions once in a while. Read over them.
Yeah. If you're not going to educate yourself, how do you expect to educate the new guy? And then how do you expect the new guy to be successful?
Yeah. Yeah. You can't just think that just because you call yourself the name of your company has flooring in it, that you know everything about floors, because you don't. I don't. You don't. Some of the guys that I think are some of the smartest guys in this industry are still learning every day. It's an evolving industry. I mean, it moves so fast. I mean, they're always coming up with new material, and those materials have new components to them. They're made of different, backings for carpet. They're, different components in the vinyl layers. When you get like a heterogeneous piece of material and they change the formulation on one of the layers, there's everything is changing in this industry, and you have to keep up with it. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, you're not going to do well. If you think that just because you learned it 20 years ago, it's the same, you're going to fail.
I agree.
And now that I'm in the technical side, I see that during some of my technical calls.
I don't even think, I mean, I get that you're on the technical side and you see changes every day because you're on the cutting edge of what's being developed. But I can look at the industry that I hopped into 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, and when I started, like, LVP wasn't huge. Okay, I was doing a lot of laminates and I was doing a lot of engineered hardwood. Now I do 90% LVPs, but even the LVPs have changed from being just, plastic and vinyl or PVC, and then the WPCs came out, and now the SPCs came out. You can look at Uzin or a Shonox or an Ardex and look at the different technologies that they're putting out from just in, like, their leveling and patching compounds. That stuff's changed in 5 years. The glues have changed from the companies in 5 years of what kind of, it's no longer just, there's not just urethanes. There's, I don't need what is, like, Bostic's thing? It's like triaxios technology or whatever. And then you've got
Right.
your alcohol based glues, and just, there's so many different things out there, and it's changing all the time. So when a guy says, I've been doing it for 20 years, I know what I'm doing. Well, that's great. That means you probably did it 1 year and you've been repeating that 1 year for 20.
Yep, exactly. You're just not going to, you can't succeed at feeling like that and thinking like that. And it's just not going to happen. And I think that's where, and I don't want to say that I'm completely successful, because I still got a whole lot to learn for sure. I feel like I'm a puppy on this side of the table. I love this side. It's great. I learn something every day. I'm still teaching something every day to somebody as well, but I have always wanted to learn something new. Every day when I would walk into the supply shop when I was an installer, from the first time I ever walked in, I would pick up a flooring magazine and read it. I would, anything I could read, any instructions on the back of a seam sealer bottle, I would read it. I would read directions, and you'd be surprised what you learn from just reading those directions. Be surprised how much better you make yourself than the guy in the truck next to you that refused to read them because he had been doing it for 20 years and his dad had been doing it for 40 years and so on and so forth.
Yep.
So it's just all about, what you want to do with yourself in the industry. If you want to be right where you're at in 10 years, you just continue down the path that you're going. But if you want to move forward and be successful and change into another part of the industry, start making more moves, start, doing other things, get more educated on a certain topic. If you really like pouring floors, and self-leveling and things like that, start going to all these classes that they offer. Half of these companies offer free classes on self-leveling and all of their products in general. Yeah. Free. I went to Ardex in Dallas, Georgia. They put me and Casey up in a hotel for free, fed us lunch, took us out to dinner, and gave us a 2-day course, certified us. All we did was pay to get down there and pay to get home.
Yep. No, there's a lot of great opportunities.
And I made a little quote the other day on Facebook, if I can remember it correctly. Getting a certification may not make you any more money, but it will save you money in the long run. And what I mean by that is you go and you learn something about this product that you work with, and you go and you use it in the field, and you might save yourself from a huge failure that cost you thousands of dollars. So that little $1,500 road trip that you took, or maybe it was $2,000 with the hotel and gas and expenses to go get certified in whatever, you brought it into the field, and because you did what you were supposed to do, and you followed the instructions, your job didn't fail. Now the opposite, you refuse to take that class. Oh, that class is just a badge. It's a boys club. It's this, it's that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go on a job and you overmix the pour, and it breaks apart under your 10,000 square foot LVT job, and now you're liable for it.
Yep.
Well, if you'd have just went to the class and seen that this is important that you do it this way, and here's why, you would have known, and that would have saved you that, but hey, we all learn. I mean, I've
hopefully we're learning.
I've definitely learned some of my things the hard way. Definitely,
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like, look, man, there's so many guys out there willing to talk. The show exists for this reason. Like, you can speed up your learning curve so much if you just listen to what somebody else has to say. And yes, going to the classes is important. It's funny that we started off talking about how we need to educate the next generation, and we end with, it all honestly comes back to you getting educated. You have to be willing to learn, and you will do better if you are willing to learn. And it doesn't matter, once again, if you're learning something about the trade, running a business, being a leader, financial education. I don't care if you pick up a book on astronomy. Go read the book. Learn something. It'll make a difference in your life. But
Yeah.
I got to, I hate to do this because I would love to continue, but I got to cut us off. So
That's okay.
Look, you are a wealth of knowledge, and if people want to find you, where can they find you?
Well, if you want to get a hold of me, if you got any questions about installing LVP, you can call me directly. My number is 843-712-4048. My email address is McWills Floors. That's MCWILLZ Floors with a Z on the end. 83@gmail.com.
You gonna wear a grill too? Like, you send back a picture, you got a grill in when you respond?
I do have a grill in. Yeah, it's platinum diamond.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. So just two things. Just make sure that you mix your patch in a bucket.
Okay. Fair enough.
And you change your trowel as often as you can.
Yeah, they're cheap, man. A trowel's $10. Especially, I do mostly concrete stuff. I'll use them 300-400 square feet and toss them out. They're probably good longer than that. I don't care. It's $10. Mark up your glue more so you can afford the trowel.
That's right.
Oh, all right, man. Awesome, Andy. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Pleasure talking with you as always, and I'm sure we will do it again.
Absolutely.
That's all the time we have for this week. To keep the conversation going, head on over to the Floor Academy Facebook group. Be sure to subscribe so you can hear each and every episode. We can be found on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and most major podcast directories. Don't forget to leave a review and let us know what you think about the show. If you would like to be a guest, have questions or feedback, you can email us at flooracademypodcast@gmail.com. You can help support the show by becoming a patron over at www.patreon.com/flooracademy. Remember to learn while you earn.